Hi there, it's Frank Lezis, the CEO of Viral Marketing, where we help you get more sales from your database with educational videos that we send to your number one business asset, your unconverted prospects, your customers, your past clients, your centers of influence. Just stay in touch with all those relationships. And on these database marketing hangouts, I like to interview clients that are getting good results with viral marketing and database marketing. And in this case, you're going to meet a top broker in Austin, Chris Waters, that in 4 years built an incredibly successful brokerage from scratch. It's his own brokerage, so it's not a franchise. He didn't have the benefit of having franchise systems to help him. He created it all by figuring out what worked in the industry and applying it to his brokerage model. And so he's one of our great clients here at Viral Marketing. And on this hangout, it's 100% educational. If you want to learn more about the marketing plan that he's following to get results with his database, by basically staying in touch with all the leads that he's generating from his marketing, which we'll talk about, go to thedatabasereset.com and you can get my ebook. It's a 20-page ebook that goes over that marketing plan. And that's all you're going to hear about viral marketing. If you want to learn more about what we do and how we can execute this marketing for you, you can go to our website. But for the rest of the hangout today, I'm just going to be drilling Chris with questions about everything about his marketing, what's working, what's not working, how he did it, how you can model it. If you're in real estate, if you're a broker, but even if you're not in real estate and you're watching this, there's things that you can learn from a very successful business owner, salesperson, and marketer, Chris, here on this hangout. So Chris, thanks so much for being a guest today, man. I appreciate it.
Frank, it's a pleasure, man. I appreciate all you've done to help me grow my business. So you've been very instrumental, to say the least.
Thanks, man. So I think everyone's pretty compelled by the headline. 2.85 million GCI in 4 years. Is that true?
That's right.
So 2010, you get back into the business.
Yep. I kind of, I graduated college in 2006, kind of dabbled in it a little bit on the weekends, and I went through a really humbling experience in 2009. I was like 24 at the time, I'd saved a bunch of money between graduating college and 2009, invested in a bar and restaurant. I'd never been a bartender, never been a waiter, whatever, and, needless to say, 9 months later, we shut down. And I put all my savings in there. Went, broke. I pretty much went in the hole. On top of that, like another 50 grand, which, for a 24-year-old, that's a lot of money. So, I didn't have a lot of choice, man. I had a lot of people calling me that I needed to pay. I owed TABC, the alcohol, commission that regulates alcohol, like 20 grand. That's, you can't mess around with those guys. So I didn't have a lot of time to waste, and it was like necessity with mother of all inventions. I was like, okay, I'm going to be completely focused. And at the end of 2009, beginning of 2010, the market was wasn't very good, and I just 7 days a week, every morning from 7:55 until 11 o'clock, I was prospecting expireds, withdrawals, and for sale by owners, and built the business starting by utilizing the most inexpensive leads, which are expired, withdrawals, for sale by owners, things like that.
And you started as your own broker, though. You got into this thing of being your own broker, not work for somebody else.
So what worked out in my favor was I had gotten my license right after I graduated college, and so in 2010 I was able to file to be a broker. So in the summer of 2010, I got my broker's license and started building the team.
Now that took some guts, man, to go off on your own as your own broker with that type of debt, without much real estate experience as your own broker, and not work for somebody else. Want to talk us a little bit about that? That's an interesting insight.
I think ignorance is bliss. Like I remember reading the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book Gary Keller put out, and he said, begin with the end in mind. And I saw a lot of value in the team model, and so I didn't really see the difference between being a team under KW versus being an independent broker. I've since I've got a lot of friends at KW. I have mad respect for Gary Keller and everything he's built. They've got one of the best training platforms online for agents with Maps coaching and Bold and all that stuff. So I can only say good things about him. But at the time, I was just very ignorant, and I didn't really see the difference. And so I just, organically built it, and I see the difference now. But it's kind of like, well, I've already kind of passed the learning curve, and I'm sure you're going to ask me what were like some of the big things that were instrumental.
Well, here's what I want to get at is so you to start calling.
Yep.
Expireds, FSBOs, leads, and then 3 years later, you become a millionaire real estate agent.
Yep.
Can you give me an overview of how in the world you pull that off? And in order so someone can maybe model that?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was on the phone every morning, my now wife was actually, in the morning, she would hear me making calls. And I'm not naturally like a super enthusiastic guy. And she told me I sounded like a robot and I was sounded super monotone on the phone, and I wasn't having a lot of success on the phones. I was going on maybe 1 or 2 appointments a week in the first 6 months, and I was at a point where like I needed to make a lot of money fast. Like I needed results. I didn't have time to just survive on 1 or 2 listings a month. So after 6 months of like beating my head against the wall, going on listings and having a crappy listing presentation, being terrible at phone conversion, I got into coaching. I got involved in Kinder Reese. I think this was 3 years ago. And at the time, Jay Kinder, he was actually one of the coaches. He doesn't coach anymore. And I worked with Jay for like 3 months, and after that, worked with a guy named Cliff, and that was probably the biggest game changer in my business to help me like accelerate the learning curve. Was getting connected through them and the members of their coaching program. And since then, I've gotten in other coaching companies like Real Estate Champions, Bob Corcoran, and I mean I think the fastest way to have success, however you define success, is to get a coach. I mean, you're gonna accelerate the learning curve exponentially. And so once, I mean, again, I was at a super humble point in my life. Like I didn't question anything they told me. Like Jay would be like, Chris, this is what you need to do. Like I didn't question it. I was like, done. We have our coaching call the following week. I completed everything he said I needed to do. Whatever challenges I had, we would kind of walk through them on the phone. And there was no second guessing anything I was doing at that time with my coach. I mean, I did it to the T. When I'm at a point now, obviously, where like I'm 4 to 5 years in, and I like question everything, and I'm like, damn it, I wish I could go back in time at the beginning when I took people's advice and just executed, and then through trial and error, would figure it out.
So you started making the phone calls.
Yep.
What was next? I mean, hiring people, spend the money on marketing. I mean, kind of where we're heading with this is the database marketing hangout. You started writing some big checks to generate leads. You use Viral to follow up with that. So it's leading to the next steps. You start making phone calls. 3 years, you're crushing it, but you're completely exhausted.
Dude,
anything you want to tell us up to that point of that 3-year mark of how you got there? People should know.
So I mean, just from like so after like revenues started coming in and there was cash flow available, which happened really quickly. I mean, I started I think that year after getting involved in coaching, I think I closed 100 almost 100 sales. It was like 98 properties I sold, and so that created a lot of revenue that I could start reinvesting in the business. So the first system I added back in 2010 was Boomtown. So I got Boomtown and I started recruiting buyer agents to start working those leads, working the sign calls, and then for about a year, kind of like waited for that to get going, and then I started layering in some other marketing tools that a lot of people on this call might be familiar with, like radio and television experts. We added on, we started with one radio station, got results, then added another station with Matt Wagner at Rate, and then we added billboards. We started doing direct mail. We bumped up our Google AdWords budget. We there's some other ways you can get leads, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, like Dave Ramsey and some of these other third-party sources.
You started writing checks to all the lead sources.
Well, I mean, not from the get-go. I mean, I layered it in. So like I didn't just like from day one, just sign up for all these things. I mean, I would test each one for like 3 months, and if it worked, I just kept it going. And so, in a very short period of time, I had my lead generation budget went, skyrocketed. I was spending a ton of money, and it was just because I just, as soon as I saw it was working, I just kept reinvesting the money.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, you obviously became very comfortable, obviously very business savvy, of taking the money from the 93 deals and reinvesting that into marketing, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your mental model of knowing like how much of revenue should I spend? How much do I dedicate to that? And like, how do you know if it's working? Like that's a
Mhm.
big jump for a lot of people to start doing that. Can you share with us some insight on that and how you make those decisions?
Yeah, so I mean, I think personally that's going to be a different opinion for everybody. I mean, it all depends on your time, where you are in life, your kids, your liabilities, and all that stuff. For me personally, at that point in my life, I knew like, okay, I didn't have a very big staff at that point. If I can, if I can have enough money in reserves to cover 3 months of all my expenses, anything in excess, I was going to reinvest in marketing. So that's what I did. I mean, every dollar I had in excess of my 3 months of core capital, I was reinvesting, which was quite significant in the beginning because I didn't have a very big team. My overhead costs are really low,
And you're
and
what,
so
27 at the time, 28?
yeah. So I mean, 2010, I was like 25, 26, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, so your
So
living expenses are low, so you can put it
yeah,
all
I
back in
mean,
the company.
I was living with my now wife. I was living with her and paying like $650 a month in rent, and like living super frugal. And like, I had this really big goal ever since I was a little kid that by the time I was 30 years old, I would get to $1 million cash. That was just, I've read in a lot of books. I'm sure you probably had a similar aspiration. Seems to be a common thing I meet among entrepreneurs about when you turn 30. It's like a major milestone in your life. So, I was that was like that's all I cared about. I was like so dead set on making that happen that I was like, I was totally cheap about everything else in my life. I mean, I was 99-cent Whataburgers. I mean, I was being
That's
as
good,
cheap
man. You put it all in your
as all.
business. So
Yeah,
you're at
yeah,
this point,
exactly.
it's basically you put it into marketing over staff.
Yep.
You just did all the work for the most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. So, and then I guess the other thing I added in, which was very instrumental, was I started building an inside sales team. And, I could no longer prospect from 8 to 11 and go on listing appointments and manage staff. So I started building an inside sales team, and I made a great hire for my first inside sales associate on my team, and the guy's been with me ever since. I mean, he was like instrumental in our growth, and I think that was probably another thing I got really lucky on was some of my first hires. I got lucky with some really great hires. It's like Jim Collins in his book Good to Great. He always says it's the who before the what, and I'm kind of removed from the business completely now, and I'm focused on trying to figure out how we can, become like the Starbucks or Subway of the real estate industry. And I don't even care what markets we go into. What's important to me is who am I going to be working with. And so that's, I think beyond the marketing dollars and all that stuff, like it's really easy as an agent to get caught up with all these shiny objects and like all the different ways you can spend money. But if you don't have the who, if you don't have the person that's going to help you execute on the follow-up and, understand the scripts and like really be bought into the vision and the goal of your company, you're just going to burn through a ton of money.
So one more question on the marketing money before we move into maybe how viral marketing has helped you or in the database marketing stuff
Mm-hmm.
is the measurement of ROI. So
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the more expensive things you're doing is the radio and TV ads.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to me the benefits of that and how that has helped your business? Like just the concept of writing the bigger checks, which you overcame that fear
Yeah.
quickly.
I mean, it was definitely nerve-wracking, but again, I was the one doing everything, so I I had a lot of discretionary money to spend because I was the one going on listings. I was setting the appointments, and it was definitely a risk. But like I was so focused on the end goal of when I turned 30, and plus I had all this debt from this massive failure through this bar and restaurant. I was just like I had just this mentality of I'm going to do whatever it takes and get outside of my comfort zone when it comes to spending money on marketing. And that's what I did. I mean, I just took a leap of faith with each thing, and it's like I don't mean to keep quoting like anything Gary Keller wrote, but you did an interview recently of my friend Tim Heil, And so, he and I are real close. We actually used to be fierce competitors when we would go out on appointments against expireds. So anyways, we're always talking KW lingo, even though I'm like totally disconnected from KW and their mega ship here in Austin.
Yeah.
But anyways, they talk about, Gary would talk about the red light, green light thing, like just hold your marketing dollars accountable and track them. That might be something else like that's really important as you're spending money, is have tracking systems in place for all your marketing dollars so you can really track, what's giving you a good return on investment. So I know
What's working the best for you right now of all your marketing in the Austin market? So you have the benefit of a great market in Austin.
Right.
So do you track the pillars of where the leads come in and the ROI for each spend?
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, it really depends on which lead source you're asking about what the ROI is. If it's something we're creating through our inside sales team, or we're prospecting through neighborhoods, or we're calling behind our just listed or just sold cards, or we're calling expireds, withdrawals for sale burners, anything like that, you're looking at a 10x ROI very consistently if you've got the right people in place. And then
that's after you pay their commissions and their salaries.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So the ROI, I mean, that is the best return on investment you can get, is maximizing those lead sources. And so once I kind of exhausted those lead sources, then I just kind of went down the food chain based off, what I heard through other people and my coaches on what to add next. So the next thing for me to add was a very inexpensive system called ProQuest, which is what we use for our for sale signs. It creates like a round robin basis so that when people call in on signs, they get routed to everybody on your buyer agent team. Your sign calls are one of the best lead converting things you can get. I mean, all these internet leads, I know that's like been a hot bun thing forever, people generating all these internet leads, but the conversions, even if you're a badass at internet lead conversion, you're converting like 5% on average, best case.
That's really high.
Yeah, I mean, that's best case. Like, literally, that's best case. I mean, to do that, you've got to have like multiple inside salespeople, around the clock coverage. I mean, it's super challenging. Like, I haven't even been able to master it, and I've been, messing with it for 4 to 5 years. I mean, I hit my head against the wall trying to figure it out. So sign calls is like the easiest and cheapest lead you can get. They convert it on average 10%. So I mean, it's like an amazing lead source for your team. Sign calls. And the important thing is to make sure your team is like really disciplined about their scripts and understanding what to say on the phone. I didn't answer your question about radio and TV.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the more expensive ones. I mean, what's your return on something like that?
So I mean, radio and TV were like the last things I added, and I wouldn't recommend anybody add radio and TV until they've exhausted all these other lead sources, because number one, it's super expensive, and the cash conversion cycle is really long. So like, you don't get your money back on radio and TV for 6 months. I mean, you need to be prepared to outlay 6 months worth of cash. So I mean, you need to have like 60 to 75 grand, depending on what market you're in, sitting in a bank account, and just be ready to let that money burn. And in 6 months, you'll start to see it come back. So it's a huge investment, and and I didn't. That was one of the last things I added. So because it does have a little bit of a lower ROI compared to like some of the prospecting things, but it definitely helps with brand awareness and exposure. Matt Wagner over at Arate is phenomenal. Man, he is. I mean, the guy is awesome. Like, I'm not like getting paid to pitch Matt here, but I mean, he's a great dude. Like, he's always, he's like you, Frank. I mean, he's like, he's up at night trying to figure out like what can he do to add more value to the industry and really differentiate himself. And so it's, he's a huge asset, and then the network itself is really helpful. I mean, just like your group, Viral Marketing, I mean, being connected to all the guys that are doing viral marketing, it's like this close-knit group, and you kind of notice all the top producers in their respective markets are doing similar things, and so it's it's a huge value add, being able to connect with other top producing agents, knowing what's working.
So here's what I've learned so far: you get into real estate, you start making prospecting calls, you're living cheap, you take all of the extra money after 3 months of operating expenses, which really isn't much at that time.
Yep.
And spend it all on marketing, but slowly layered one new source every 3 months, and you're getting results from it.
Mm-hmm.
How did viral marketing come in this? Because normally you hire viral when you have like, your past clients and influence people but you're getting in totally cold and you're going after all strangers on marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So why viral? Why database marketing and why videos? And be honest.
I'm probably like the case study from your perspective, and I know you'll get a good kick out of this because I'm like the thing. I did everything you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you all of the emails you gave me are all like internet leads, and they're like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
So, I mean, I was sending out like a traditional newsletter to people once a month, and it wasn't engaging. People weren't opening it. People weren't, responding with questions. And I remember calling you like 2 years ago when I was thinking about joining Viral, and due to the number of listings we take on, I have a full-time photographer and graphics designer on staff. I was like, man, I can totally recreate what Frank's doing. I was like, I'll recreate that, no problem. And I think I paid you I don't know, I paid you some money, and you like basically showed me how to duplicate what you did. And
well,
then
you were in a position where no one has that staff. Like if you already have staff, you don't need to hire us for it. They can do it.
Right.
But
I mean, so like I'm one of those people that I have the staff. I could totally do what it is I pay for you to do for me, but after a year of failing at it and doing a terrible job at it, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna give in. It just reminded me of back in like 2010, where I was just beating my head against the wall for 6 months, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a coach. So like you were kind of my pseudo coach, and that's why I got involved in Viral. And I mean, your coaches on the coaches we work with or whatever, they're always sending us great ideas on content. And I mean, I remember that like super ninja letter you wrote at the beginning of the year.
The magical seller lead generation email.
Dude,
He wants to go to before you tell your results on this.
Yeah.
Pull up Google for our audience. Type in summer 2015 magical seller lead generation email. This is called a direct offer, and it's something you probably want to send to your list maybe every 6 months. Just a plain text email that basically says take action. You can't do these all the time. They're like layered on top of the educational videos.
Yep.
But tell us about the results you got from that thing.
Yeah, so I mean, we sent out, I mean, it was the most, I mean, at surface level, it looked like just a basic like text email, and I was like, whatever.
All it is.
We'll send it out. And and Tim, my inside sales associate, actually Tim who runs my inside sales team, he's like, Chris, we've got like 16 appointments on the books from this one email. And he's like, how do we do more of this? How do I tell Frank to send us more of these letters? So
every 6 months you do that. So I'm very clear on this. Don't send that out every week. You can't.
Yeah.
But and the thing is, I rewrite those about every 6 months, and after I write and I post it, they depreciate because it's referencing something going on in the world at that time, so it's relevant. Mm-hmm. But it worked because you're educating with the videos. But keep going with what you were saying.
Yeah. So I mean, like we ended up converting, I think 8 listings. I think it brought in 65,000 in GCI from one email. So I mean, our ROI with Viral has been incredible, and I think ultimately due to all the different kind of funnels I have with all the different lead sources coming in. Basically, dumping all those databases into Viral really helps us stay engaged with the people we're following up with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how many? All your lead sources, they go to one CRM. Do you have it centralized into one thing? And is that Boomtown for you now?
Yeah. So we use Boomtown. That's our primary CRM. I'm going through this process of expansion. We opened another team in another city in Texas. And there's a couple other markets where I'm interviewing some expansion partners, and we're going to have to use Salesforce and get outside of Boomtown. But I'm sure your question is how many people do we have in our database, and it's north of 12,000.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, how many emails would you say, like contacts, are you generating? Oh, my webcam just went out. Well, you're not looking at a talking logo. Can you see me, Chris?
I can't. The screen froze.
No, you can hear me though, right?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Well, anyways, how many emails are you generating? How many contacts are you generating? How many people are you putting into your database every month, would you say?
Gosh.
Is that even a number you track?
So for me to like articulate that to you, I have to like break it down per lead source for me to like jog my memory. From sign call leads, we have between 250 and 300 like legit sign call leads that we'll put into our system. We're getting an excess of 500 sign calls, but half of those are like legit. So 250 to 300 from there. Expireds, withdrawals for sale by owners. That's not a lot. It's less than 100. With the Boomtown system, we've got between 400 and 500 contacts going into that, and then through some of our offline marketing, like radio, TV, direct mail, billboards, all that stuff. Those lead sources, they don't produce like massive quantities, but they're higher. The conversions are a little higher, and that's generating another 150 contacts a month. So we're putting in, I don't know, I didn't add that in my head, but I'm
A lot.
yeah, we're putting in like 1,000 contacts a month, and we are constantly like refining our Boomtown database. So like, obviously if somebody's not motivated, they're wasting our time, whatever, we put them in the trash. So it's not like every single month. At the end of 24 months, for example, we'll have 24,000 people in there. We're constantly like mining through those contacts and trying to only work with the motivated and ready, willing buyers or sellers.
So I think with all these people, like you're spending in the promo I wrote, and again, for anyone watching this, my webcam went off, so I'm a talking logo right now. You are spending upwards of 50 grand a month on lead generation now in the summer months, and then you tailor that down in the winter and whatever. But on average, it's about 15% of your GCI you're spending. You have to have some way to nurture all these leads that you're bringing in. And can you talk more about how you're using Viral for lead nurturing, and then what you are doing for lead nurturing in addition to Viral?
Yeah. So we have we do our Viral videos twice a month. We have our Raving Fan program where we do like client appreciation parties once a quarter, and the entire team will we'll have like a call night. We invite everybody to a client appreciation party. There's a local like AAA baseball team here in Austin, and we like rented out an entire deck, and we're doing like this huge client appreciation party. So we're doing that, and then we actually have one of our inside sales associates that are getting the information from you guys at Viral and looking at who's opening the videos, who's clicking them, and she's actually calling through that list and just talking to those sellers. And again, another screw up of mine was when I set up Viral with you guys when I got going. I didn't make the calls, and I've got decent results, but one of the big game changers for us was when we actually started making the calls to people that were opening the emails and clicking on the videos. That was like a huge game changer for us.
You're generating so many names that when those videos go out, people are clicking on links that say free value report or search for homes or what should I know before I sell my home in the video. That's like your lead scoring.
Right.
Scoring the leads of who you want to call. So you just take that list we give you and just give it to an inside salesperson. What do they say? What's their script?
It's really simple. We just say, hey, Mr. Buyer or Seller, I noticed you were looking at our educational video blog we do every other week, and I just wanted to see if you had any questions or you're thinking about buying or selling. We noticed you've been checking out our videos. Is there anything I can help you with? So we just try to come from like a mindset of curiosity and a servant's kind of mentality. Okay.
And what do you do with the phone numbers? Do you have any tricks on getting the phone numbers from the list?
I've tried like experimenting with some like emails because we'll have their emails and we'll send out like a blast email to everybody, and in the subject line, put in the subject line, "Forgot your cell phone," and that's all the subject line says. And then in the body of it, we'll write, "Hey, I can't find your phone number. What's the best number for me to call you at?" So that's something we'll do like probably every 3 to 4 months.
So you just send that to the whole list, or just one-to-one?
Yeah. No, to the whole list.
The whole list gets the updated phone number.
Yep.
Okay.
Like subject line, "Forgot your cell." We did another one where we put in the subject line, "Left you a voicemail," or "Left you VM," and then in the body wrote, "Hey, I don't know if I called the right number or not. What number can I reach you at?"
Okay. No, that works.
Yeah, we've tried some different things to get phone numbers because obviously people, only submit their name and email address, and the name of the game is obviously getting them on the phone.
Yep. Then you can Google the email address on the
Yeah.
report to find information there. Have you ever tried like Intellius, I think it's called, or like any like all those online contact information providers?
Yeah, so like I think one of the cool things about Boomtown is like they'll help you locate some of their social media profiles, and so you can go track them on some of the different social media outlets like Facebook and Twitter.
Okay. What have you found have been the best video topics for you to send out, and how do you come up with a topic that actually is meaningful that you're comfortable sharing on a video?
So, I mean, up until lately, I mean, it's really been just, you know, success through failure. I mean, that's really what it's been. I mean, we sent out a recent video um, about how you can use your 401k towards your down payment on the purchase of a home. And I got tons of engagement through that video. A lot of people asking about, how that works, and I was able to connect a lot of different potential leads with a lender, so that they could kind of walk them through that process. And that obviously added a ton of value to our lending partner. So that was a great one we've done recently on the 401k. I'm trying to think of. Man, I feel like I've recorded so many videos at this point.
What's your what? I wish I had this here. What's your video blog? Where can people go to see all your videos?
It's I think this sounds terrible. I think it's christopherwaters.blogspot.com.
Okay.
I mean, you can also go on Google and you can just Google
Yeah, go to YouTube.
Christopher Waters, and yeah, and you'll find them.
Okay. So
And
we talked about how you're building a database, and yours is pretty much through the help of prospectors. So you have two people doing outbound calls and one person responding to the warm leads coming from marketing.
Yep.
The majority of your emails are coming from marketing generated leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're using Viral now to stay in touch with the past clients that you've acquired over the course of few years, but really to kind of nurture all the leads that you're getting. And it's working well for you.
Yep.
And then you're publishing them in 2 videos a month. And then finally, your team is calling the people who are watching those videos as to prioritize the follow-up, because those are the hot lead scores. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was working with Bradley in your office, who is your marketing director. Is that right?
No, actually, Brad's actually the president of our office, so he runs the day-to-day operations of the business, and I mean, really oversees our team leads that oversee the buyer agents, and
so he's the full office manager.
Yeah, he's running the show here in Austin from an operations perspective.
Okay. You want to share maybe the idea that we had of how we can set up more of a vendor program and a co-marketing program? Not so much as far as the interviewing that we talked about, but what do you do currently right now for vendor and co-marketing programs to include people on your blog or just in your marketing in general and those types of things?
It depends on the relationship. Like if we've got somebody that's contributing a lot of money, we're doing a lot of different things for them. So like my lending partner, we have a billboard, we have a poster in the office in the conference room where clients are going. We have a button on our email signatures where people can click to apply for a mortgage. We've got them advertised on our website. We're speaking of the lending partners, interviewing them, interviewing the like the lender or the home inspector or the home warranty person, and letting them kind of vet out all the frequently asked questions, if you will, and sending that out to our database. I've also done some stuff on the radio where we both went in to the radio station, just like they have like their typical morning talk show or whatever, and we both went into the morning talk show and kind of chimed in on a session during the morning talk show, and that was kind of a joint marketing deal we both got to work on.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. One of the things we're working with Bradley, is that you have the moving company, Bluewell Moving in Austin,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to know how you want to work with them. So Bradley actually interviewed Bluewell Moving to come up with a whole bunch of moving tips, like some audio interviews. And they actually ended up posting those interviews on their website, on their moving site, and they get a ton of traffic.
Yep.
They have a huge database, a huge following.
Mm-hmm.
And they post those interviews on their website. They promoted those interviews on their Facebook out to their list. And they also gave you really good backlinks back to your Boomtown site when they posted those interviews on their site.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of an interesting direction of kind of the co-marketing interviews and interviewing other business owners to help get access to other people's databases, as opposed to you only having your own and spending a lot of money to build your own. So I guess we're working more on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a genius idea on your part. I mean, I think it's phenomenal because, it's obviously the best type of lead is a referral. And if, it takes a lot of time to nurture those relationships with your vendors. And I mean, truthfully, if you think about a home, there's so many different vendors we can work with. There's so many people that, basically make, revenue from the sale of a home, from movers to furniture companies to plumbers, tile guys, roofers. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And, they have their own database, kind of like we all do as real estate agents. And if you can get these vendors to, market to their database about their relationship with you as a realtor, I mean, that's kind of like getting a referral. So it's, I think that was like a brilliant idea on your part. We're looking forward to doing that with more of our vendors and trying to, penetrate their own personal databases and, try to get it to be treated like a referral.
Okay. So we kind of covered, for everyone listening here, again, I hope you're enjoying the talking logo of me since my webcam doesn't work. But, your marketing generated leads, staying in touch, obviously staying in touch with past clients, getting emails, 2 videos a month, calling the people to watch them. And then we talked a little bit about how you can complement that with some co-marketing. And we're working on that. And you'll hear more from us guys here at Viral Marketing on some of the co-marketing test groups and how we're really trying to systematize that for you here with the co-marketing. But another thing that you're also at now, to take it even a step further than just the 2 real estate videos I'm about to your list, is that you're looking to recruit. I mean, you mentioned earlier you got a much bigger vision for Waters International Realty. Why don't you explain what your vision was with that, and then how in the world do you plan on finding the people to help you execute that vision?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure who all's watching the video now, but I'm not the first one to have the ambitions of building an expansion team. The difference is I'm my own independent broker trying to expand using the team model. And as I went through that process of growing my business, I mean, we ultimately succeeded through failure. And we documented every time something went wrong, we documented it and how we could improve on it. And that's ultimately how we created proven systems that we could do repeatedly and get consistent consumer experiences. And in the service industry business, I mean, that's the name of the game, is how do you create a consistent consumer experience and do a high level number of transactions. And so we know like who it is you need to hire when you go from 50 closings to 100 closings, and I know what problems you're going to have when you go from 50 to 100 closings outside of just people. So there's this whole like scaling dynamic, and it's until you've been through it, it's really hard to understand all the little nitty-gritty pieces that you have to you're going to have to implement and execute on in order to number one, like for example, when we went from 100 closings to well, let me back up. When we went from 2012 to 2013, I went from 150 closings to 325.
That's incredible.
It was freaking chaos. I mean, it was nuts. And so, like, I mean, we literally learned through failure. It was, I mean, we made a gazillion mistakes. We documented all of our mistakes. We realized where we needed to hire people, and so ultimately, what we're trying to do is, I know there's a lot of people out there that are, they're selling 40, 50 homes a year. They're killing it. They're making, really good money, and they want to put, they want to leverage themselves so that they're not grinding like I was, for example, working 7 days a week and going from 8 a.m. till midnight. And so I can basically help somebody now, coach them to help them so that they can have a balanced life, grow their business, and I've already gone through all that pain and frustration of what you need to implement at what specific points based on your production. And
so you're looking for, so not to interrupt you, but you're looking for agents that want to basically have your coaching, have your admin support, and also get some level of lead gen support out of your centralized office in Austin
Yep.
in various markets around the country.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not trying to sell coaching. Like, I don't want to get into the coaching game. I mean, I have like mad respect for Mike Reese and Jay Kinder and Bob Corkin. I mean, those guys are just crushing it. I mean, they were like instrumental in me accelerating the learning curve. I'm looking for more of like an equity partnership with people I partner with, and one of the challenges when you're trying to scale your business is you don't have the people available. And so what we've been doing over the last year and a half in Austin is we've been building a hub here in Austin of a substantial operations team and a huge inside sales team. So like for our expansion partner we have now in Amarillo, which is in North Texas, she's able to leverage all of the people we have here in Austin to help her with accelerating that scaling process. So, for example, she doesn't have to go hire a W-2'd employee to input her listings and do contract to close, and she's got confidence knowing that like the person we have is going to do a great job. They're going to do it consistently, and she can get it done at a fraction of the cost. So basically, she pays like a transaction fee per file to our kind of to our hub. And at a certain point, she'll need to hire her own, transaction coordinator and listing manager. But by her being able to leverage all these people in our hub, she's scaling 10 times faster than you could, otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about how you plan on finding these people. So what I want to talk about is how you're going to use video or database marketing to recruit. So I think people understand your model of what you're trying to do here. What's your vision for that?
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a very similar blog to what we do for consumers, except it's gonna be for real estate agents. And every single post we have is going to be on a topic of some kind of value we can add to agents in their respective communities, and build an audience through these educational videos, much like what we do for our consumers for the leads we're getting for buyers and sellers, and then drive traffic to our video blog that's going to be very similar to the one we use for our real estate team. So that's kind of that's how we're going to build the recruiting funnel piece. I mean, there are some other pieces like working our sphere of influence and whatnot, but ultimately we're going to take like a huge database of all of the agents in the markets we want to work in, kind of nurture them through our educational platform to help create credibility, and then once we've kind of like nurtured that database, and we've gotten our report every 2 weeks of who's clicking on the links and who's watching the videos. We plan on calling them, inviting them into our office, let them kind of come tour what it is we've done here in Austin. Fly them down, let them meet our operations team, let them meet our inside sales team, all the people that they would be working with to help them leverage their success and help them grow exponentially faster.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great, man. I mean, you could have 100 people around the country doing this in various markets.
Yeah.
And all the prospecting and marketing decisions and everything's done out of corporate right there in Austin for yourself.
Right.
It'll really become Waters International.
Yeah, it's a lot of people ask me how the international thing came about, and I remember like in 2009, I was reading all these books, just taking in as much educational stuff as I could, and Donald Trump's book and all these business guys, they all, Gary Keller Williams, they all said, begin with the end in mind. And so my end goal was always like, man, I want to have like this corporate hub in Austin where we have this huge inside sales team and operations team, and we help people scale their businesses significantly faster. I know some people think what I did was fast in 3 years, but I mean, I can't even imagine how fast I would have grown if I had been able to leverage a lot of these things like, administrative stuff and inside sales, all the time it takes to recruit these people and make sure you get really good people and then train them. I mean, that stuff's like, it's extremely time consuming. It slows down your growth. And so, my end goal was we're going to, across the U.S., we'd have a huge hub, and it's kind of like Subway or Starbucks, and we're going to help leverage all these teams, using proven systems and repeatable processes, and use some of our resources here in Austin, and then help them eventually, scale in their own staff so they can start having their own culture.
That's
And
great.
then create like we've been building what we call our recipe book for for the last 3 to 4 years, and then sell internationally, franchises, sell our franchise, our recipe book, if you will, and educate other people on the process, and all the things we screwed up on and learn from, and help them get to where they want to go significantly faster.
Great, man. So we have the for anyone watching, and we have quite a few people watching here. Again, my webcam's not working, so if you're joining us, I'm a talking logo today. On the right-hand side, there's a Q&A box. Feel free to ask a question. Just write it out really well, make it specific. And we got plenty of time here at the end for live Q&A. That's why I like to do these live as opposed to like a recorded video. So you can have some participation. So speak on up and get your questions answered from some Chris. And I'll ask you some pretty boilerplate questions, Chris, that people always like to know. Is, for someone doing 50 deals a year right now, which tends to be kind of our typical audience here at Viral, where should they be? What order should they be putting their money into their marketing? I think you kind of answered this before, but give me very clearly, what's the order of marketing spend?
Yeah, so number one, exhaust all your lead sources that have the lowest cost. So that's, expireds, withdrawns, explore some of these third-party referral sources like Dave Ramsey or some of those other guys. I mean, it sucks paying those referral fees, but you want to get as many transactions under your belt, kind of help you build your cash flow. Exhaust those resources. I mean, absolutely, no matter if you're doing 20 or 30 deals, I would highly recommend Viral. I think even somebody that's only doing 20 to 30 deals, Viral can be really helpful, because it helps you consciously as you go throughout your day, collect business cards and kind of have this mentality of building a database. And for anybody that's read Millionaire Real Estate Agent, they kind of talk about the metrics of how many referrals you should get for your number of people in your database. And so it just kind of helps you as from an accountability perspective, working with you guys. I mean, I fell on my face trying to do it on my own and wasted a bunch of money. So anyways, that's definitely one of the pillars I would do. And then from a personnel perspective, I would definitely recommend, if you're doing 50 transactions and you don't have a full-time assistant, I would recommend going ahead and getting a full-time assistant. I think around 70 to 80 transactions, you're working your tail off, and that's almost to a point where you're going to burn out, and you really should consider hiring an inside sales agent, or possibly hiring a buyer's agent to help you work all of your inbound leads on the buy side. And so you should delegate the buy side of your business to a buyer's agent. So that's what I would do for somebody that's hovering around 50 transactions.
Great answer. Thank you. Marty Evans asks, where's a solid resource to get scripts if you're just starting off, I would assume, and you're making those calls like you did?
A great resource for scripts. Okay, so it depends if you want buyer or seller side scripts. If you want seller side scripts, there are some, super kick-ass YouTube videos of people that record themselves on YouTube making expired calls, and I remember watching them 5 years ago. So I'd go on YouTube and type in expired calls. Just literally expired calls, and you'll see a huge, playlist of all these people that record themselves. And I would just try to model their success, write down their scripts and then internalize them, and then, make them your own. So that's what I do on the seller side. On the buy side, the script we use most common is what's called the LP Mama script. So that's just an acronym. L is for location, P is for price, M is do you have a mortgage, A is for are you working with an agent, the last M is their motivation level, and then the last A is to close for the appointment. So I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make on the phone is they want to try to establish themselves as experts on the phone. And so they have diarrhea of the mouth. They're talking about all the neighborhoods and the schools. And they're just going off, and they're, that's awesome. I mean, you definitely, it's super important, all that stuff, but the point of the phone is not to like try to establish yourself as the expert. The point of the phone is to collect information, identify their motivation, how, if they're already willing buyer or seller, for example, and go for the close and set the appointment. It's not like, don't overcomplicate the phone. The goal is to close for an appointment, and that's all you need to think about. Once you get face to face, that's when you establish yourself as an expert.
Okay. Well, if you have any other questions feel free to ask. For the rest of the time here, I've asked everything that I really want to know and share, Chris. Maybe we could talk a little more specifically about viral for the people here on the last part of the hangout. We have clients that get great success that follow the plan, lots of success stories. We also have clients that will hire us and just struggle, like really, really, really struggle to get anybody to watch their videos or anyone to get any response whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And really, my answer to that is viral is really just like an extension of the person. It's an extension of who you are, the individual, and it's also the quality of the relationships you have in the list.
Mm-hmm.
What tips do you have to somebody, honestly, to like hire us and actually make money working with us?
Yeah, I mean, like if that person had that challenge, the first thing I would ask them is like, what's the quality of your list? Are you like just going and buying email lists and dumping them into viral, or are these people that are actually, you've spoken to, or you've gotten their business cards, or, you physically have met them in person and you've input them into Boomtown, into viral. I think the number one thing is you've got to put in like quality contacts. You can't just dump people you have no clue who they are. Like I'll give you an example. I told you earlier before we started this hangout, I'm trying to identify all the real estate agents across the state of Texas. And I got a database of like 211,000 real estate agents. And like, if I were to just go dump all those people into viral, like they're not gonna watch my videos. They don't know who I am. There's no credibility. There's no authority there. So I think it's about nurturing really quality leads. So people you've really engaged with, you've met with, you've talked to. So to have success, you need to put, you got to have like a lead funnel in order to get them engaged. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then how do you remind yourself to always be asking for the emails and holding that accountable? And then how do you make sure you actually stay committed to actually recording something intelligent on video every 2 weeks or one appointment a month to create 2 videos?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the best thing is the monthly spend we pay for viral.
Good.
I mean, I'm like, I'm spending $500 or whatever it is. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's cheap compared to the ROI, but it's, even though it is $500, I want to hold those accountability. I want to hold those dollars accountable. And so I'm like, man, I don't want to throw the money away. So I mean, the biggest accountability partner for me is the money, for one, that we spend per month, and two, God, if I could go back, 3-4 years, I mean, my biggest weakness, and I'm willing to bet like 99% of the real estate agents that are out there, their biggest weakness is nurturing their database, like undoubtedly. They're not calling them. They're not, stopping by and visiting them. They're not doing any kind of client appreciation parties. I mean, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else because I did the same thing. Like, I mean, I was horrendous at nurturing my past client database, and I'm spending, I had like a record month. I spent like $69,000, $70,000 in marketing. In the month of June, it was like absurd, and I was like, man,
that's a lot of money.
I need to like step up my game and, get back to the basics of, working on nurturing my past clients and my database. And so like we were, honestly, we were kind of slacking on like the client appreciation parties and stuff. And like that, all that stuff is super important. I mean, that's how you get people engaged, and that's how you get results out of viral marketing is, by calling the people. I mean, it sounds so stupid. And I'm like the first person that would tell somebody like, dude, you've got to call your list when you find out who's opening them. And like, I was guilty of it. The first 6 months, I didn't call anybody. And then we started calling. It was like, we started having all these like amazing conversations with sellers that had, and we had paid like a fortune, for these leads. And like we hadn't been calling them before, and I was like, you know, it was one of those moments where you just like hit yourself in the head and you're like, I can't believe I went this long without, you know, calling these people that are engaged on my video blog.
That's great. Brian Souza asks, and this is on the comments, not in the Q&A box, which is no problem at all. What advice do you have to a small team like ours who does 80 to 100 deals a year? It's a very broad question, but what advice would you give to someone who has a small team like ours who does 80 to 100 deals a year that maybe wants to be in your shoes?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, there's so many learning lessons I've had. I can't reiterate enough like how important the who is, like getting the right people on the bus. And like, man, I like beat my head against this whole thing of like culture. I was like, for so many years, I was like, man, what the hell is office culture? And like, how do you build team culture? I didn't understand any of that stuff. I actually flew out to Zappos in Las Vegas and did their culture tour and started reading all these books on the art of happiness and all this stuff on like, you know, how to build like an amazing culture. So I think the number one thing you can do in this, doesn't matter what point you're at in your business, whether you've got 50 transactions a year or you've got 100 or 200 or 300, you need the right people on the bus. And you need to understand like what your core values are as a team. And this is something you got to do as a group, and like people need to buy into this. You know, you can't just go on Google and go copy and paste somebody's core values. So like, you know, we came up with a core value when we went through this like 2 years ago, that to join our team, you need to be able to problem solve like MacGyver. That's one of our, you know, one of our core values. So like in the interview process, you know, we ask people like, tell me about when you're like stuck in some crazy situation, you couldn't figure out how to get out of it. Like, tell me some examples of like how you were able to overcome like some like crazy obstacle. And, you know, that's how we get an understanding of like what they're, you know, how resourceful they are, because that's really what you want, especially in salespeople, is you want salespeople that are really resourceful. They're not always going to know the answer, and they need to be able to do whatever it takes to figure out what the answer is. So first thing I would tell them is figure out the who. And then I think number two, track your, hold all of your expenses, hold them accountable really closely. So I use a tool called TeleTracker, and we have a vanity phone number for every single lead generation system we have that tracks all of our calls. It also records the calls, so you can hear your staff and, you know, how good they are at the scripts when they're converting these into appointments. So I think it's about the who. It's about holding your expenses accountable, and you know, tracking what it is you're spending money on, so that you've got the confidence to want to go and, you know, add another layer of marketing to your arsenal.
That's great, man. Chris, your advice and feedback today have been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And for anyone here that would like some more information on Viral, at least the marketing plan, thedatabasereset.com, go there. It's a 20-page ebook I wrote that literally goes through how to reconnect with your neglected database, specifically using video and social media, just like you said, Chris. Yeah, the big challenge is not staying in touch. So I wrote that document very clearly of what's working for all our clients, and that's the plan that you want to follow, or you can turn around and talk to us about helping, you know, hire us to help you execute it, which you can go to our website to request a strategy session. So that's our database marketing hangout. I'll stop it there. And I just want to say thank everyone for coming. And Chris, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Frank. It's been a pleasure.